AI-infused search is what the session is about, and as the name suggests, this is about search, but incorporating some AI. So how does that really work? I mean, and what should you expect from an AI perspective in this session? So let's clarify a little bit what we are talking about when we say AI in the context of this training. But I just noticed that I am in a really weird place in this slide, so let me move myself a little bit. So the levels of artificial intelligence. I mean, I'm sure you did go through multiple sessions so far during the whole global tour, and you might have seen that some of the sessions are kind of going really deep dive, and some are, I'm not going to say superficial, but some of the things are kind of really easy to do. Some require a little bit of a knowledge and background or anything like that, right? And the idea is, there are high level services and low level services, right? I kind of give this example of, there are high level programming languages and low level programming languages. I mean, you have C and then you got C#. I mean, those are pretty different, right? So, and if you're going to build a website, I don't think you would start with C, and at least I can't think of I can't imagine. My imagination isn't extended enough to come up with a use case where you would do that. But that doesn't mean that, see, I mean, if you're building the things that comes to my mind right now is mostly about military, so I don't want to pronounce those. But anyway, so there is a use case for everything, maybe a real-time system or something. And that's kind of the same idea here as well. There are high-level AI services which is kind of really easy to consume and create added value for your customers and the business. And there's obviously, as high as you go in the stack, you lose a little bit of a control on the platform and customizability, obviously. And that's where you start going down the layers, and you have to do more stuff if you're going down the layers. And right now, if you look at the slide deck on the right hand side, you can see that the hardest kind of model is you're training your own AI ML, essentially ML model from scratch. So that requires making sure that you got the right data, making sure that the data is clean enough, and you understand the data, and then you use it. You pick the right structures and the parameters and all that stuff that we're not going to go into right now. But long story short, you got to create everything from scratch pretty much, and you will be running an experiment, and at the end of the day, it might fail. So you start from the beginning again. Maybe the data that you had at the beginning, you were thinking that was right, but it's not. Long story, right? Even explaining this whole thing is taking up some time. And then if you go one notch down, there's this customizable pre-trained models. One good example for that from Azure is the Cognitive Services Division API. So there's this, the name of the service, there's this customizable vision service. It's not the exact name. I just can't remember it right now. But anyways, so you can start with a model that is already pre-trained, but you can add additional data on top of that and customize it, and come up with something really nice in a really short amount of time. So this is kind of the middle ground between creating the whole thing from scratch, or simply using a pre-trained model, which is the easy section of this whole spectrum, right? On the left-hand side of this slide, you see that you simply use an existing model. You don't even, most of the time, you don't even care about how it is being hosted somewhere, because I personally call this, and I've seen other people call this as well, as serverless AI services, because you don't have to worry about anything. There's just a REST API that you're using. Obviously, some of the services, they still provide some level of customizability, but at the end of the day, those are REST APIs. I mean, you don't necessarily need to know a lot about AI or ML to be able to consume these services or incorporate these services, other than just being familiar with the HTTP stack maybe. So, and that's where this session is about. That's what the session is about. We're not going to go deep or anything. So, and when we are talking about search in Azure, the primary product that comes to your mind is Azure Cognitive Search. The old name for this service was simply Azure Search. But recently, and by recently, I don't necessarily remember the date, but it's been a couple of years, if I'm not mistaken. So the service name ended up being, they transformed it and they renamed it Azure Cognitive Search, because it has some level of cognition in there somewhere. And that's the topic of this session. So let's look at this slide for a moment and go through the bullet list so that we don't miss anything. So the first one is a search engine for full text search. So it is what Azure Cognitive Search is about, right? This is a search engine for your data. It has rich indexing, but here's what's kind of a little bit differentiating. Here's what brings the cognitive part of it. Rich indexing with text analysis and optional AI enrichment for context extraction and transformation. So this is a very short definition of what that optional AI enrichment is about. I will dive deep into that. But this optional AI enrichment is what that cognition comes about. And then the service is pretty simple to use. It has this pretty simple syntax, full Lucene syntax if you're familiar with that. Type ahead search is something that they provide. REST APIs is what you have to use to be able to consume any of the capabilities of this service. And there are client libraries, SDKs for .NET, Python, Java, and JavaScript, and maybe more that I might not have included in this slide deck. But again, REST APIs, you don't, I'm not going to say you don't need an SDK. Yeah, you don't need an SDK. If you have it, that would be really nice. Obviously, it makes things much easier, right? Anyway, state-of-art ranking algorithms, that's important. State-of-art ranking algorithms through Semantic Search, which is in preview. Here's spoiler alert. Just before this presentation, I tested out one of my demos and it was not working. Yeah, so we will give it a try. I bet it's because of the preview, and yesterday it was working. I mean, believe me. We will talk about that. The semantic search was really something that I wanted to demo, but it wasn't working less 10 minutes ago. Hopefully, if that was a momentary glitch or something, and to be honest, my index and data is lost as well. But anyway, it can still be a momentary glitch if you're talking about preview services. So maybe it comes back and we will do the demo on that one as well, or maybe not. We will see. So here's the next slide. So again, we will go step by step. So the first step is, what is this thing about? Cognitive search in the middle, as you can see. So there are two ends of this whole pipeline. The first on the left that you can see, and let me make sure I'm in the right place on this slide. Oh, I'm good. This place looks good. Okay, cool. So there's this, on the left-hand side, there are these tools or, these data sources that you have, and you feed those in, right? You want, and to be indexed. You refresh your index if you want to, and if you have some AI enrichment, they are all talking to the indexing engine. They're all putting some data into the index. And Azure Cognitive Search does the indexing, and there is on the other end of the spectrum, there's this query engine on the right-hand side, and you see all of your apps, mobile apps, backend apps, whatever thing that can, send an HTTP request, can talk and query this data. That's kind of the very high level. If we go a little bit deeper, we got to talk about the indexers, because when we talk about an index, we know what that is, an index, right? We know an index from SQL Server as well, something that is, prepped for search. But indexers are something specific or special in Azure Cognitive Search, which is, a crawler essentially. So those indexers, if you decide to use those, they go out and crawl data for you. You give a target destination, you give a data source. In this case, they get the metadata and the searchable stuff from Azure data sources, which is what is officially supported today. But there are things in preview, which you might see in the slide right now. Right on the second bullet list, you see that, Redshift, Salesforce Objects, Snowflake, there are indexers for those as well. They're just in preview. I don't have a timeline to share, but, they're at least in preview. So one day there will be GA. But for today, the scope is pretty much limited to, this is not the full list, by the way. I am going to share the link at the end of the slide. So go ahead and look to the official list. These are kind of the highlights that I grabbed from the official documentation. So Azure SQL, Azure Cosmos DB, Azure Table Storage, which is another NoSQL type. Blob storage, if your data is there, you can grab it, you can crawl it, you can index it automatically without writing a single line of code. That doesn't mean that you cannot write a code. If you want, you can definitely do that, but you don't need to. Okay, there we go. It looks like someone really liked the agenda in Paint. Yep. Okay. And look at the bottom part of this slide deck. So, because that's an important, we are a little bit going into the details of this whole pipeline. So document cracking is where the indexer starts working. And then you got to map the fields that you get out of the document, right, to the skill set execution if you're going to execute a skill set. So let's say you're going to do celebrity recognition. And obviously you got a document that you extracted, but out of the document you got 11 fields. So what field do you want to run against, what field do you want to look for celebrities, right? So you got the first mapping, you extract the schema, and then you decide what fields are going to be enriched with AI. That's kind of the question that you answered there. And then you got some output. And then output has to be mapped into the schema of the index. So you got another mapping, and finally you push it into the index. So that's good. We did a little bit, go into the details there. So AI enrichment. I mean, I did refer to this a couple of times. So what is that really? AI enrichment is actually an extension for indexers. It works during the in crawling process. I mean, you cannot make a verb out of an indexering, because if you say indexing, then you're talking about the indexing that happens in Azure Cognitive Search, which is not what we're. So indexers do crawling, so the verb form is crawling. So during the crawling, and after the crawling, actually, you saw the pipeline, and I got another diagram on the next slide. So they are an extension for the indexers, and you can build your own AI enrichment skill set as well. And you can use. I mean, there are a lot of built-in skills that are based on cognitive services. That are serverless AI services from Azure that you can buy separately, so you can use them, consume them as AI enrichment in Azure Cognitive Search, or you can build your custom skill if you got a model or something hosted on in a Kubernetes cluster or something. You can definitely build a custom skill around it and incorporate that into the pipeline here. The two primary groups of skills that we have are first natural language processing, and again these are just highlights. The categories are okay. We got two major categories. The capabilities that I'm going to go through are highlights, so they're not a full list. So natural language processing, entity recognition, language detection, key phrase extraction, text manipulation, sentiment detection, and PII detection. Cool. So you're indexing something and you don't want to make sure, PII is, blurred out or highlighted or I don't know, whatever. So you want to make sure PII isn't exposed. You can detect that. So that's a good thing. So image, I gotta be careful with the pronunciation. So image processing skills. When I talk fast, sometimes my pronunciation skews somewhere else. I don't know where. So image processing skills. Optical character recognition. So you got some PDFs, images. We'll do a demo about this. Identification of visual features such as facial detection, image interpretation, image recognition. Celebrity recognition is another one that is not in the list that I just mentioned. So these are the things that you can do with the AI enrichment. And here's how they fit from a high level. So you got some data, you do document cracking, and then you execute all of these skills that you have. You can have multiple, as many as you want. And then once you got that, you get an enriched document and you index that. But there's one other thing that I want to talk about. We're not going to do a demo about this because it's just, it's not a huge thing. First off, it's not a sexy demo. It's pretty easy. It's just a checkbox. Anyways, I will show you that, but I will not execute that. But one thing that is interesting kind of in this pipeline, you can incorporate something called knowledge store. And when I say knowledge store, that feels like, wow, right? A lot of information, right? Knowledge store. It's pretty simple. So look at this pipeline. I mean, you're already familiar with part of this pipeline. So we got data source, document cracking, and by the way, I am sure I am overlapping something on this diagram. Let me move myself. There you go. So you got the data source, you got the document cracking, and you got the cognitive skills. They're enhancing stuff. But after that, this weird thing, the pipeline is branching out into two different directions, right? One goes to the search index, which is what we saw in the previous slide, which is what we're used to. But then there is this other branch that says, hey, enriched documents are moving something else in a knowledge store. So here's the thing. When you run an AI service or enrichment against a particular field, that document, that process outputs a lot of various information. You might not want to index all of that. So let's say you want to index part of it, but you still want to keep the full output of that, what that AI process, what the model put out there, right? The output document, you want to store that, the raw output of the AI process. You want to store that somewhere else. And that's because maybe you're going to do something else with it. I mean, you will um, work an additional ML algorithm based on that. So you just want to have that and be able to feed that into something else. In this case, maybe it can be a machine learning process or human validation for analytics. I mean, you can run analytics on that full-blown thing, but you don't want to put that into the index because index isn't cheap, right? So that's kind of what the knowledge store is about. Let's keep all the knowledge that we created with all these enhancements so that we can use it or look into it when we need to. Okay, so that's a good one. Let me look at the questions. Do we have any questions? No, it looks like we don't. Cool. Okay, great. And my next slide is a good one. Demo. Okay, let's do this. Let me see. Where is my... Okay, this is the browser that I'm going to use. Meanwhile, let's make sure I am away. Okay, so here I have an Azure storage account where I have some data. I can actually... Oops, I did close that window. Let me see if I can show you where that data is. Give me a second, because it's already uploaded and I didn't want to lose time by uploading that thing. But right now I'm losing time by finding the same files in my okay, I'm gonna pause talking for a second because I'm not good in multitasking. It's definitely slowing. Okay, it's definitely slowing down on me finding the files. Okay, here we go. So these are the files that I upload into the storage. So I got an HTML file in here. I got some pictures of Scott Guthrie in case you don't know him. I got some PowerPoint files. I got the Word document and so on and so forth. So the HTML file, for example, it's actually a form that is about Microsoft Corporation and so on and so forth. Okay. So those are the files that I uploaded into the storage in a container. The next thing I'm going to do is to go to the marketplace and say Azure Cognitive Search. You might be like, why didn't you create this service before the presentation? Because it's really fast. And I want to show you how to create that in case you're not very familiar with Azure. But I couldn't do that with the storage because it would be too much time. Daron Search Lab or whatever. Can we validate that? Is that a unique name? Okay, cool. Okay, that's it. Review and create. So I am creating a new Cognitive Search account. Create. It's going to take less than a minute. It usually does, please. Please be the case. Okay. Deployment in progress. Come on. And then, there you go. Ready to go. Great. Okay, we got our Azure Cognitive Search account ready to... Oh, well. Well. Okay, here's the thing. This problem that I'm having right now, I had this exact problem with my other... Okay, I'm going to bring that in. This is supposed to be my next demo. This is in a separate subscription, and this is flagged as a preview with a preview feature. This is the thing that I was talking at the beginning, like I'm not going to be able to demo because there's an issue. But the issue apparently is not related to the preview, but the overall, because those are two separate subscriptions having the same problem. And this is a brand new service account that I created having the same problem. I will still give this a shot. Usually that error should not show up. That's not a good sign, but let's see. So I'm going to say import data. And come on, I double clicked. I'm pushing my chances here. That's kind of funny. I am wondering right now if there is a global problem with this service or anything. Anyways, because this can't even be regional, because right now, this can be regional. We picked that region, right? Give me a second. I'm going to look at the region. This is West US 2. My other service is West US 2 as well. So let's do this. Meanwhile, I'm going to open another portal. I'm going to say import data from here. Yes, please. Okay. So existing data source. I already tried this previously, so obviously you can see that, but I will go and do this from scratch. I'm picking Azure Blob Storage. I'm going to name this data source in the context of cognitive service, test data source. We're going to crawl content and metadata. We will use default parsing mode, which is going to use a correct parsing mode for every document that we have in the store. So, and then we're supposed to give the connection string, but I will instead say, hey, choose the storage account and go get your connection string yourself. And this is the storage account that I want to use. So I'm going to click that. It's going to list out the containers. So this is the container I want to use and select, and there we go. So the connection string came in, the container name came in. We don't have a folder, and this is it. So now I'm going to click add cognitive skills. So this is kind of the next step. It's an optional step. Right now it is trying to, and there you go, authorization failed. So right now it goes and detects the schema of the data. It looks like I'm not even going to be able to demo that, which is a huge bummer, to be honest. But I will, now that we have the time, I will just try something else and try to create another cognitive service account in a different region. Maybe the issue is regional or something. Instead of West US, let's go with North Europe. And okay, resource group, cognitive search, DRN, lab global. Okay, is that it? Okay, great. Okay, review and create. Let's see if that's going to fix the problem, because both of these accounts that I'm having a problem with, they're all from West US 2. It's just bad luck. Okay, let's see if it works. If it doesn't, I'm pretty much done with my presentation, because the rest of my presentation was supposed to be all demos. Okay, deployment completed. Go to the resource. Please don't give that error. Oh my God. Okay, this pretty much makes, okay, the other thing that I can try is a different browser. I can give that a shot. Okay, let's do that. I mean, we have the time. We definitely have the time. Portal.azure.com. This is an in private window on Firefox. I don't feel like this is going to make any difference, but still. So I will get my credentials in. Come on, one password. Work with me, please. Okay. So now, okay, where is my password? This one. Copy. And this. And this. Okay, hopefully I get that right. Oh yeah. Two-factor. Okay, we got in. At least you can say that I didn't try. What? Logging in again? Okay. Okay, so let's get rid of this localization based on my region. Okay, refresh. So resource groups, cognitive search. Right now we got 2 cognitive search accounts with a problem in 2 different regions. If this was a browser thing, I should just be able to go in and this should work. If this is a browser thing. It's not. Unfortunately, it's not. So this pretty much messes up with everything. I'm thinking what else we can do here. And I don't think I have another. Let's see if I have another Azure Search service in my subscription here, but no, I only have 2. Yeah, and those 2 are the ones that we created. So the ones that we created aren't working. This is like a beautiful demo of Azure Search, like failing on all fronts. And my previously created Azure Search is failing as well. So let me status.azure.com. Let's see if there's really a global issue or something. Please don't localize anymore. As you can tell, Firefox isn't my default browser. So do we have a separate Azure Cognitive Search? It doesn't show any issues in the SLA, but I don't agree with that. So I got to go back to the slides. I mean, because there's nothing else I can do right now. It's not working. So I can tell you what was supposed to happen, but yeah, when we index that whole thing, there's all mass PowerPoint files, Word documents, and all that. If we index that, you would see that it did index the content of the documents. It would index the content of the documents, including, the content of PowerPoint files, the content of the Word documents, and the we would pick OCR. There's a checkbox that you can do in OCR. It would even OCR the images and put that data into the index. And then what I would do is I would select the AI enrichments and say, pick celebrities. And my demo was about, let's go and search for all the celebrities that they found, and it would find, Scott Guthrie as a celebrity, which would be fun. It would find John F. Kennedy as a celebrity because it's mentioned in that legal document. And it would find Satya Nadella as a celebrity out of those images as well. So that was my demo, but unfortunately, it's not happening. At least, I guess I can show you how to delete these services because I don't want to leave them. I picked standard tier, so I don't want to keep paying for these, obviously, even if they work. Stuff that I create for demo, I usually delete them during the presentation to make sure I don't forget. So that's one thing. The other service I'm not going to delete. I will just keep it just in case it starts working in the future. And I'm going to explain why. In order to do that, I got to go back to my slide deck. Okay. So, hope you liked the demo. Anyways, semantic search. So semantic search is about incorporating language understanding into this whole thing, but it's not an AI enrichment. It's a way of searching your data. So when you have semantic search enabled, this is on preview right now, and in order to join the preview, you got to apply a form, which I will share the link at the end. And it looks like they implemented the link. It wasn't there yesterday. They implementing the link on the Azure portal as well. So you simply click that link, you fill in a form, and you give the service name of the cognitive search service that you already have. You should create one first, and then you give the name to the product group, and they enable this feature for your cognitive service account, which is what I had. I was keeping it because it was flagged to have this particular feature as a preview in it enabled. So, but it's not working either. So, so when you enable this, you got a couple of things that you get out of this. The first one is semantic captions and highlights. So when you do a search, it returns the regular search results. But in addition to that, for every document that you have in the search index, it gives you a caption and a caption with highlights in it. The idea is that, you know, when you search something on Google, you don't just see the results, but you see highlighted results as far as, you know, a couple of sentences from that target source, right? So that's kind of the idea. So for every document, it puts up a caption. It creates a caption for you based on the content of the document. And then it duplicates the caption, but this time highlights parts of it by putting HTML bold and italic links, okay? Tags, not links, tags into the text. So that's what you get. So, and that kind of helps you out if you're going to expose this search result in a web portal or an app or something. You can get, you know, out of the box captions and highlights for your search results. So that's the idea. The other one is semantic answers. If you enable that, by default, it only gives you one answer. When you search for a question, it brings you an answer crafted based on the content of your documents. It gives you only one answer, by the way. It's not like caption and highlights, which is per document. The answers are per search. You can ask for multiple answers. There's a separate parameter for that. You can specify a count number for the answers. So you can ask 2 or 3 answers. I don't remember what was the upper bound for that, but it's not like 100 answers. I feel like it was 5, but I'm not sure, to be honest. So, and that's a good thing because, again, this is something Google does, right? When you search for something, sometimes it is bringing an answer to you. And finally, semantic ranking instead of similarity scoring. That's important because that's important, especially when you search for a question or something. It doesn't simply look how similar the items are to each other when it's ordering items out of its search results. It is looking into the semantics of it. It is trying to understand the context of that content through language processing, language understanding, to be able to rank your search results, which gets you a more accurate search result, right? Based on the NLP implementation. And finally, spell check. If you mistype something and it's part of your search terms, you will still get good results because the semantic search brings a spell check capability. So that's it. That's what semantic search is about. I actually had a demo about this. I had a index ready to go for this. I even had a query to copy paste. I'm going to show you this. Okay, here is my. Let me refresh. I still want to try my chances in case it works. Come on, please. No, it doesn't. So I actually had an index with 14,000 documents in there. It doesn't even show me the index. There's definitely, I assume this is, yeah, it would be too long right now to create a client to query. I feel like the search indexes are working. It's just the Azure portal that is failing to authenticate with the service. If I had a local app for, I didn't have it. If I had a local demo app that would connect through the service keys, I bet it is still working. Otherwise, this will be a huge failure, and I feel like otherwise the status page would show the problem. I feel like all of the indexes are still up and running. It's just that the Azure portal is having issues to authenticate to the underlying whatever that is to grab the right information to show us. Anyways, what I was showing. Oh yes, this is what I would show. Let me copy paste. And I know you like not Notepad. You like Paint, so you should like Notepad as well. But I'm gonna zoom in. So this is the query that I was planning to send. I had an index with a lot of. I created an index based on the COVID academic publishing dataset that is open. It's an open dataset shared by Microsoft. I'm sure it's not just Microsoft doing that, but anyways, so I don't know. So my index has a lot of COVID stuff in it, academic publishing and abstracts and all that. And I was planning to send this query saying, hey, what happened in December 2019, and as a result, we would see a document that really relate to this particular date. And you gotta say query type semantic to be able to have semantic search, and then you gotta specify a language as well. Obviously, give me a second. A pop-up just appeared on my other window. Oh, yeah, sorry. That was the only thing missing in this presentation, right? Me getting sick. No, it's not what's happening. Anyways, so let me zoom in back. Query language. And then speller, if you want to have a spelling correction. And finally, if you want to have answers and not just captions and highlights, you pass this parameter saying, hey, I want answers extractive, which is, as far as I know, the only option right now for this parameter. And then you say the count, the amount of answers that you want. And I was supposed to demo this particular query, and it would bring a really nice answer, which was really feeling like it was a direct answer to this question. Even the sentence structure. It was so good. I mean, this would be a winning session. Okay. The next time I should maybe capture a video of my demo so that I can fall back to demo for my videos. This is the first time to me, to be honest. I mean, I am demoing Azure stuff for like 10 years now. This is the first time that I'm not able to do a demo because of a service unavailability. Anyways, so that was it. And let's see. Okay. So this was supposed to be demo, and here we are. So why not a database search? That's an interesting question, right? Why not a database search and instead use Azure Cognitive Search? I mean, first off, obviously, linguistic aware text processing, stemming, lemmatization, word forms in 56 languages. Cool. It's something, as far as I know, is not available in a regular database engine. Autocorrection of misspelled words. Yeah, we did talk about that. Synonyms. I mean, there are a bunch of other features about Azure Cognitive Search that I didn't talk about because they're not necessarily AI related. So synonyms is one example. Suggestions, scoring controls, faceted search, which isn't easy if you wanted to do that on a regular database, custom tokenization, and offloading the search. I mean, offload it somewhere else, more high performing, and, get your database do what databases do, right? So those are the reasons. So what about the other way around, though? Why a database search? Why would I choose a database search instead of Azure Search? The first problem is an interesting one. I have seen this in a couple of places. I don't remember what it was that a Microsoft document or something. I hope not, and I bet not. But I have seen, not necessarily about Azure Search, but about Elasticsearch as well. Maybe this might be right about Elasticsearch, but not necessarily about Azure Search. And I don't know about Elasticsearch. So what I'm talking about, so they were talking about having this search service as a database. They were considering this a database. So I understand the idea. I can do empathy around it, but I don't agree with it, especially in the case of Azure Cognitive Search. Because let's read the slide's first bullet item. Paging in Azure Search relies on the skip parameter. So in order to, take records 10 by 10 or 1000 by 1000 or whatever, I don't remember the upper limit for that. But there is an upper limit for the page size, and you the way you do it, you skip. You skip 10 records, you skip 20 records, so, and that parameter is capped in 100,000. So that means, let's say I don't remember the page size. Let's say the page size is 100,000. I'm exaggerating right now. Whatever that is. As long as there's an upper limit for the page size and there's an upper limit for the skip parameter, this means if your index is larger than that, you are not going to be able to read the rest. The workaround for that is to use a partitioning key. Essentially, you add another parameter into your queries and through the partitioning, and hoping that in a single partition you don't have larger data or larger amount of a higher amount of documents compared to this 100,000, then you can read all of your data. So long story short, getting all of your data out of this index isn't easy and might not be possible if you don't plan for it. And the worst part is you're not getting a consistent, backup, because when you are reading through the index, unless you shut down production, and even if you shut down production, while you are reading, you are actually giving data to Azure Cognitive Search to rescore items by reading them. And the rescoring will shuffle the index, which means you will never know you got a full copy of your data. Would you call this a database? A database that you can't back up? No, this is a search index. This is not a database. So, and officially there's no backup or restore capability of the service. So maybe this in the future, I don't think so, by the way, but maybe in the future this capability comes in. Still, this is not a database. And let's jump to the next item. Next reason, static schema. If you want to change your schema, you gotta recreate your index, which means you gotta upload your full data again from scratch. Not very friendly. No joins if needed. Yeah, you cannot join across indexes or anything like that, or even across documents. And finally, which is like, all of these problems might be fixed, right? I mean, you cannot fix the problem of, rescoring during reading. I mean, if officially there would be a backup and restore functionality, I would hope that it wouldn't have that problem. But again, that's a long shot. But anyways, let's say everything happened. This service is optimized for reads, not writes. And that's what a search engine should do. It should be optimized for reads, not writes. So it's not your database. Optimized heavily for query performance, slower write performance. So if you end up, having a lot of data that you got to dump into it, expect that to be slow because you are paying for the indexing. Yeah. So it's not a database. So if those are your needs, you should definitely go and use a database. But it's not a this or that type of equation, right? You can use those in combination. You use a database, use an indexer, use a Azure Cognitive Search, and set the indexer. I wasn't able to show that. You can schedule the indexer. You can say, hey, run this indexer every 15 minutes and get all these updates from the database to my search index. You can do that. And all these indexers, AI enrichment, and all this stuff that I was planning to show on the portal, these are things that you can automate as well. I mean, there are REST APIs to do all these operations. There's a REST API to create an indexer if you want to do that. I wish my demo was based on these REST APIs because I feel like the REST API should be healthy. Otherwise, things are pretty dire for cognitive search right now. Okay. I'm going to look at the questions. No questions. Perfect. Okay. I'm not sure if it's perfect, but at least there are no questions. So, and then we're going to jump into resources. Okay. Give me a second. I'm going to check something. Okay. We still have time. Yeah, cool. Resources, Semantic Search sign up. So this is the link that you can go and fill out the form. But before you do this, make sure you got a Cognitive Search account because they're going to ask you in the form, as far as I remember, it's been a while, a week or two, but you're going to write down the service account name and they will turn on this preview feature, the Semantic Search feature for your cognitive service. And finally, I just wanted to share a link to the official documentation about Azure Search. It's not Azure Search, by the way. I'm still, I don't know, maybe I'm getting old, but I'm not getting used to name changes that easily. This is Azure Cognitive Search. There's no there's no Azure Search. Quick start. This quick start, this is beautiful. The first demo, not the Semantic Search demo, but the first demo that I wanted to do, it was partially in this link. Okay, the quick start has really nice chunk of it. So if you go to this quick start and do it step by step, you will be covering pretty much 60 to 70% of my first demo, which is, I think, a good fair amount considering the failure we are in right now. Okay, with that, that's all I have. So we are